Want to make sure my volume is actually working. Hey, happy Independence Day after for those of my friends who celebrated in America. Actually, I'm up in Canada, so we celebrated over the weekend. And yay, it's July. Welcome to July. I just started swim lessons with the kids this morning for the first time in 3 seasons. We didn't do it for 2 years because it was just a huge hassle to get in and out of our rec center that we have here in my small town. So yeah, I had 5 kids ages 3 to 11 doing their swim classes, and they took to the water like little fish. So that was great to see, because actually 2 years ago, if my now 6-year-old had started then, it could have been traumatic for her, because she didn't even, I think there was 6 months we didn't even wash her hair. We just gave her a break. Have you ever had a kid like that who just like washing their hair just becomes like borderline trauma? So, but now she's, waving at me and smiling. It was just so nice. So that being said, I'm finally sitting down on my porch. I got my morning cup of coffee at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have 3 things on my heart to share with you as a big family mom. 3 very common mistakes that I believe a lot of big family moms make. I know I made them. I still sometimes fall into them. So I'm going to go over them real quick, just to give you some food for thought, so you can see like, oh, am I doing this? Because this could absolutely bring down the stress in your big family mom life, which, when you've got 3, 4, 5, 11 kids like me, managing your stress and bringing it down and cutting it out where you can isn't just like a nice idea. It becomes critical, in my opinion. So here's number 1. We'll get right to it. Comparing yourself to other moms. Big mistake. Oh my goodness, I did this so much. I cringe thinking of the early days as a mom when I had 3 kids under 2, or like 4 little kids, and the big outing of the day was going to the park. We weren't even at swim lesson stage then. Yeah, I used to compare myself to a lot of other moms, because I didn't grow up being really prepared for motherhood, and suddenly there I was in the thick of it, pushing a stroller and thinking about things like diapers and coupons, and managing a home, and just keeping my head above water every day, and keeping the kids alive, and starting to think a little bit about school and just everything. So of course it's natural to gravitate towards other moms who hang out at the park, in your community, in your church, or whatever. But I found myself comparing myself to 2 kinds of moms. Younger, like not younger, I meant to say smaller moms, like smaller sized families, so they had less kids than me, and they were only ever planning, like most contemporary evangelical Protestant Christians in the West, just Christians in general, like all Christians across the board statistically have small families measured by 2 or less that can fit in a little compact car. So I compared myself to them and their lifestyle, which we had committed to welcome all the children that the Lord would send us, barring major medical big time circumstances, which I talked about last week. And it was hard, because apples to oranges, suddenly having like 4 kids compared to 2 kids, just the logistics alone, 5 kids compared to 2 kids, 11 kids compared to 2 kids. It's, in many ways, sure, there's overlap. We can talk about diapers, we could talk about coupons, there's lots of stuff we could talk about have in common. Of course, we're human, created in the image of God. However, there's a lot of things, ideologically, theologically, logistically, that they just, I say this with love, bless their hearts. I know in the States it's not always a nice thing to say, especially in the southern states, but I do mean it. Like, God bless them. They are not someone I should be comparing myself to, by and large. Now, the other mom I would compare myself to was the bigger family mom, because every once in a while, unicorns do meet. And these big family moms with like giant white vans like mine. I got the 15 passenger. What do we I don't even know if it's a Ford or a Dodge. My husband takes care of these things. I take care of the house. He takes care of the vehicles. So our giant white van, right? And sometimes we see each other, sometimes in passing. Very occasionally, maybe at a conference or like a homeschool kind of thing. Haven't done those in a couple of years. Well, we see each other, and it's great to get to know, maybe you're like a church kind of thing, and there's like that one other family in your neighborhood, unless you happen to live in a pocket where there's a lot of big families, because demographically that does happen from time to time. Not my neighborhood, but we know who each other are, especially if you homeschool. You start to get to know each other in the smaller community that homeschoolers tend to make up. But I compare myself to them. Of course, I don't know them like super deeply well, right? Like, how much time do we really spend in each other's homes and like have deep, really like heart to heart relationships? But I just see them, or even the idea of them. And they seem so much more put together than I was, especially as a younger big family mom, and maybe you compare yourself to even someone like me. If you're hanging out in my big family moms community, or you've purchased one of my courses, you're like, wow, Tara, she's got so many kids. She's got it all figured out. She's so organized to this. Well, I mean, if you've heard the backstory, it didn't start out that way. It's been a process. So I have learned to give myself grace and not compare myself to either one. Instead, keep my eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of my faith, who the joy set before him endured the cross, and keep my eyes on him and let him be the one who directs my husband and I as we lead our family. And yet I can learn. I can learn really good like logistics, and I can learn some great tips and get, coupons and sales tips from moms of whatever family size. However, not to compare myself and even my fundamental worth, first of all, as a human being, as a daughter, adopted by the grace of God, um, to compare myself, especially as a mom, to either one of those two women. So comparison, if you've heard it said before, is the thief of joy. And that's a big mistake a lot of big family moms can make. And I think we come by it honestly. However, just be aware of it. So if you're finding yourself doing that, then it could be something to get curious about and explore a little bit, like why you find yourself doing that, because that would be something to definitely get rid of at the earliest opportunity, because it'll really set you free to run the race that God has set before you and not before her or her or her or her. So next one, big mistake that big family moms can make is trying to do everything yourself. Sometimes, I get it. And I say this with like a big caveat of grace. It can be challenging when you're home, like I have been all these years, stay at home, full-time mom, watching so many other moms go back into the workforce, back into the workplace, sometimes with mixed emotions as they put their kids into daycare or whatever arrangements they've made. So I'm at home and I'm doing it all myself. And, wherever you live geographically or what your family, extended family relationship or your church situation is like, don't always have the convenience of a lot, sometimes even very many or any real strong support in your life. Someone you could ask for a non-medical babysitting kind of thing, or just to help you out for a couple of hours, especially if you're postpartum or you're going through like a really rough pregnancy. That being said, for most women who are going through like a crisis level situation, just doing it yourself and not even getting the kids involved with the chores, it seems counterintuitive. And I know, because sometimes we have our own hangups about getting kids involved with chores. We think, no, we have our own baggage, our own childhoods. So what I mean is the two kinds of doing it yourself. Never asking for help from anybody, sometimes out of fear or pride. To be honest, say that with love because I've done it myself. And not harnessing the like built-in structure of a big family. Even a 6-year-old can start to do some meaningful chores, depending on their health and their developmental ability, of course. Last weekend, my husband was away, and I got my almost 6-year-old. She's 6 this month, so she's counting down. And someone had to bring up the blue bins with all the plastic and metal recycling, and we have 3 of them because we fill up those just 3 blue bins in a week. So I just said, they're pretty light, and I said, hey, could you pull those to the bottom? Don't lift them, just drag them and see if you can get them to the bottom of the driveway. Normally that's an 8-year-old chore. She did it and she was so proud of herself, but that's how it begins. I've got a whole system on how to get the kids involved in big family chores, because you don't have to do it all alone. And like I said, from the earliest age, kids can get involved. And if you're struggling with how to get, other people in your life, family, friends, obviously people that you trust, in, helping you in a way that feels good, we can talk about that more. So I've got a link below for my big family moms community if you want to talk about that, because it's sometimes easier said than done. I know I've sometimes been down to like maybe 2 people I could call in an emergency, and that can get a little stressful. I understand. Last thing real quick, because I'm going to keep this fairly short, is keeping everybody happy. And by happy sometimes is a synonym for busy. And sometimes big family moms, and this goes back to point number 1 of comparing ourselves to other small families, it can be logistically easier, in my opinion, to have 2 children involved in an arts, a science, and a sport, and rotate through that after hours extracurriculars all week. But if I compare myself to that, and then I try to get my kids all involved in those extracurriculars, because I feel this cultural pressure that literally I'm making up, that says if your kids aren't involved in ABC, sports, arts, or STEM activities, then I've done them wrong. I haven't prepared them There's our neighbor. That I haven't prepared them for life well. They just somehow won't be prepared for life and godliness. They won't know how to function in society. God knows, because they were homeschooled, they won't be socialized. You know what I mean? But that's something I've made up in my own head. And usually because it started out by comparing myself to this cultural ideal, usually stemming from the culturally predominant small family model. So if I'm trying to keep everybody happy and I think that I got to keep them busy, they got to be doing this, they got to be doing that, and I become the emotional micromanager of everybody's happiness, it's a recipe for burnout. I hear a lot of big family moms tell me, and that they want to make sure everybody's needs are met. And I see that. That's a whole conversation, right? What are the true needs beyond basic survival, right? Once we've hit that level of now we're going to, you know, more than just food and the clothes on our back and the day to day that the Lord says He will provide so graciously, right? He cares, He knows the numbers of hairs on our head, right? He cares for the sparrow. And so I trust Him to care for those things, because otherwise, if I just had to stress myself out, like, how are we going to eat today? I give that stuff over to the Lord. But I tend to take on the responsibility to keep everybody happy. Well, happy is a completely subjective term. What does happy mean? Happy to you? Like, does it mean busy? I've got 11 children, and I'd say from probably about the 4-year-old up, they have a pretty good idea of what makes them happy, whether it's candy or unlimited screen time or being able to, bigger boundaries. So it's important to decide, like, where are the boundaries of how much I'm going to furnish and facilitate beyond their own safety, their happiness and their opportunities. And I tend to lean more towards giving them safe boundaries and opportunity, and then away you go. Because I think it's actually a wonderful thing by having so many children. I'm not micromanaging their personal happiness, their personal, actualization of their own lives, because that's part of growing up. One thing that God so graciously planted in my heart as a young big family mom, I had no clue what I was doing, A, as a mom, B, as a big family mom. I really believe this was from Him, so I'm going to pass it on to you in case you haven't heard it before, is that we're raising adults. I know it's hard to think of it that way when there's so little, and you're just thinking about the next 20 minutes. But my dear friend Lauren once said, think in the next 20 years as you're dealing with the 20 minutes, because today is the day the Lord has made, right? And today has enough worries of its own. So I'm in the present. I take care of today's business and all the affairs on our schedule today. And I'm looking ahead a little bit to tomorrow, but look a little past that once in a while and think about 20 years, because that will help you make choices for today, whether it's how many extracurricular activities will I do and why, because if I'm only led by the children's happiness, then what will I do if they're not always happy, 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 busy, 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 especially compared to a cultural norm like mom says screen time's over, or no, that's enough. No, you may not have third helpings on dessert. And kids will be so quick, and they're also so quick to get over it. But if I make my value as a mom tied to their happiness, it's a roller coaster of emotions, and it can make me a slave to other people rather than having healthy boundaries, saying, like, I love you, you're my child. Obviously, I have a role of responsibility to raise you up into adulthood. And part of that is letting them find how to facilitate their happiness. I give them some opportunities. And when they come to me, they're like, I'm bored. I'm like, I got some chores you could do. And they're like, I'll go find something to do. There's a bonus tip for you. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. Hey, you love my perspective. Thank you. Only two. Hey, two is enough on its own. I know sometimes people are like, oh, almost wanting to diminish the challenges that you have if you only have two right now. But I believe the Lord gives grace to its measure. And right now I have 11, so I have grace for 11. And when I had 3 under 2, I had grace for 3 under 2. I didn't have 11 for then. So you today have grace for today for your 2. I'm just going to open up real quick and say hi in the comments. Hey, it's Sarah. I couldn't see in my streaming who was talking to me. Hi, Sarah. I know you have only 2, but God will give you grace for today to raise up your 2 and everything else that He has entrusted for you. So thank you so much for meeting with me live. I'm going to wrap it up here and keep it under 15 minutes. I'll talk to you all later. Oh, and I want to mention before I go, if you're really struggling with this big family mom stuff, and you're like, this sounds great, Tara. You've got a lot of insight. If you haven't already popped into the Big Family Moms group, which is linked below, and you just want some immediate help, I do have my Big Family Home course linked below as well, where I share exactly how I keep organized, how I get into a routine, and how I keep calm and help the kids stay calm. Because once you dealt with the stress of mess and fighting all the time, then you just life gets so much easier off that. It's like you hit your cruising altitude, and now it's not just like choppy all the time hitting, what do they call it? Oh, what's the word, Sarah? What's the word when you hit turbulence? That's what I was looking for. It's been a while since I've taken a flight. You wouldn't want to in Canada right now. We're pretty backed up. So if you're looking for some more help with just the day-to-day of Big Family Moms, there's the community that's available totally for free. Just go ahead and you can link below. Otherwise, I've got the course available. That's all there for you. It's the help I wish I had when I was in the beginning. So there it is. I'll sign off for today, and I'll see you in the group. Take care.